I grew up in a region, Western North Carolina, where there still was a lot of folklore about water. My grandmother would never let me go to the spring house. I loved to catch salamanders and crayfish as a child, but she would not let me disturb the salamanders in the spring house. And it was because she felt like they were the guardian spirits of the water. And my uncle kept a trout in the spring house where water ran, and he kept a trout in there, and he would feed it cornbread, and it lived there for a pretty long time. And what I found out years later was that in Germany, very often in villages, they will keep a trout in the water supply, and that way they know the water is pure. And so what my grandmother was doing was, in a sense, the fact that those salamanders could live there was also a sign that the water was pure and of high quality.
That's Ron Rash, one of the great American writers, and that was from episode 1. This is episode 100. If you're new here, first of all, bold move starting at 100. My name's Robert Osborne. By day, I'm a water engineer. Along with Dr. David Ladner and Amy Anderson, I've spent the last 7 years making this show about, it's actually what this episode is about. Hang on. The other night on a whim, I went back and listened to that first episode. First time since we've made it in 2019. And here's the thing about that episode. There was absolutely no reason Ron Rash should have talked to me. I was helping to organize a conference. He was there, and I worked up the nerve to walk over and ask to interview him. He said yes. But the better story from that day is what happened on the way out. I bumped into Dr. Ladner, and somewhere in the conversation, he looked at me and said, "If you ever start a podcast, I'm in." Just like that. A few months later, Amy Anderson said yes too and brought some badly needed adult supervision, and that's it. That's the whole origin story. No plan, no strategy, 3 people and a conference. So this month I kept going. I listened back through a bunch of old episodes, and yes, I absolutely still cringe every time I hear my own voice. 100 episodes in, that apparently never goes away. It's amazing I got this far in life. But then I hit this one. After a short 2 minutes, we see one. Yes, it had to be. Then another. Then, like some sort of Disney production, the whole forest floor began to move, and it was filled with small blue beams. Surreal. It looked like a scene from the movie Avatar. Eerie blue lights circled the forest floor. Blue Ghost Fireflies, to this day, our most downloaded episode. And it's almost didn't get released because I couldn't figure out how to tie a glowing insect to a water infrastructure. I tried. It was weak. David and Amy told me to release it anyway. And you know what? They made the right call, which I appreciate you not telling them I said this. Small, quirky, beautiful, easy to miss. Honestly, the Blue Ghost Firefly should probably be our mascot. And listening to that episode and a bunch of others, I realized something I did not expect. For 7 years, I've been telling people that this show goes behind the scenes of water and wastewater infrastructure. You know what? I was wrong.
My favorite episode is the one about wastewater treatment plants smelling like turkey the day after Thanksgiving. Is it real, or is it just a wastewater urban legend? The episode is called The Turkey Aroma Mystery Remix from November 2023.
Hey, Outfall, this is Daniel. I just want to say how great the June 2025 3-part series on the South Carolina mountain wildfires were. I didn't even realize what it took to put out wildfires, and that in-depth look at everything from the forestry division to the plains to understanding it's more about control than actually putting out the fires. Great job. I've passed it along to so many people. Keep up the great work.
This show is about people with unique passions, not just passion, right? Passion for things most of us never think about. Catherine Zich, Kristen Rawls, Pam Kennel have made water resources planning their life mission. Who does that? Dr. Steve Galladay has spent his career educating others on freshwater mussels most people have never even heard of. And then there's Buzz Williams from last season, who had spent his whole life fighting for the Chattooga River. And he's still building a legal case to tear down a dam so he can run the hidden rapid that hasn't seen daylight since 1902. He told us,
Aldo Leopold has a definition of conservation. And he believes that it's man being in harmony with nature. My definition of conservation is being willing to give something up for the greater good. Now, I'm not going to let these special interests capture. It's as simple as that.
people who care deeply about something, most people never think about it. That's the show we want to make. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. We just try to shine a light. Let's take Dr. David Worth. He built a hydraulic laboratory in Anderson, South Carolina. This is one of the world's preeminent hydraulic labs, and he built it on maxed out credit cards in a little old Anderson.
I still get surprised. That's why we do these. To do a physical model is an admission that you don't know something about, right? That's why you'd still do this. We are regularly surprised.
And then near the end, we asked him what the key to his success had been. He didn't talk about the lab or the clients. He said this.
I love to see the light bulb go off. One of the ways to succeed in this particular business is to educate your clients and your owners why this helps them and why this is good for their customers. And so everybody that comes here is subjected painfully to an hour or more lecture of me in here. And so, and I think everybody that leaves here, I hope they learn something about hydraulics. So they're a better engineer. And what I want from them is to not need me for every project, but then they're going to know when they really do.
Since that episode, he sold the lab, built something completely different here in the upstate, a thriving local meat market. PF Meat Company with stores in Pendleton, Anderson, Toccoa, Georgia. We also got to spend some time with Grady Hillhouse. Remember him? At the time, he had 2 million YouTube subscribers on his channel, Practical Engineering. And if you haven't seen it, go watch it tonight. What I love about Grady is how he stumbled into all of it. His wife was a kindergarten teacher, and he'd get invited to career day to talk civil engineering to 5-year-olds. And something clicked.
And so as I was giving these presentations, I noticed how engaged the adults were, right? And it just kind of clicked, like, you know, that the average kindergartner knows just as much about civil engineering as the average adult does. There's no reason to act so dignified about it, right? I mean, civil engineers, half of us just think about dirt all day. It doesn't need to be this grand, esteemed profession.
And I'll say this off the record. He's one of the nicest guys we've ever had on. We recorded that whole episode at night after he put his new baby to bed. And then there's John Woodruff right here in Clemson, who built this remarkable miniature golf course. He built it with no blueprints, just a vision and 6 years of showing up. When I asked him how he described the place, he didn't miss a beat.
It's a botanical garden with some golf in there.
And then when we asked him if he had ever had any low moments, he said,
I jumped out of bed every morning and ran down here. You can make anything you want. I've always had to create things. I'm an artist and a creator of things, so it was just heaven for me. As we were building it, people said, well, why don't you just hurry up and finish it? And I was like, okay, imagine this. I'm building an airplane, and you're going to fly in it. One of my wings isn't quite finished, and some of the windows aren't in yet. Should I just go ahead and open? And no, so I couldn't open until it was there.
6 years, no blueprints, just passion. Oh, and if you're wondering, he's still working on his next 18 holes right beside it. John built something beautiful and then hid it behind a concrete wall and a screen of bushes. You had to stop and go looking. This week, I asked David and Amy to share a few thoughts about favorite episodes or memories from the show. I love what they had to say.
One of the early Outfall episodes was a water short, and it was about orifices. And when we lose weight, which orifice, or through which orifice does the weight leave our body? And ever since that episode, every year I teach my grad class on environmental engineering principles, and we think a lot about mass flows and energy flows and the way things come in and out of different environmental systems. But, our body is essentially an environmental system, or it's analogous to other things in the world. So I always tell my students to go listen to that episode of the Outfall. I don't know how many of them actually do it. Maybe I need to make an assignment and make it a graded thing. But I always tell my students to go listen to the Outfall podcast, because if you're in a grad level class, you need to listen to this grad level material.
We really are just a bunch of nerds that like learning and figuring out how things work. So if you give us an opportunity and a platform to talk to somebody that has a bunch of really niche, cool knowledge, we're going to take it. So it's hard to say that you in your everyday life would get to talk to someone who knows the ins and outs of how they deal with wastewater on the International Space Station, or what it takes to dive down into a sewer and actually dismantle a fatberg of wipes. If we have the opportunity to talk to someone who's doing it, we're going to take it.
Is on a personal note, I interviewed my dad. We had gone to Nashville to run the Nashville Half Marathon. And he was kind of doing some bucket list stuff in his life, wanting to run. I don't know if he ever ran a full marathon, but figured a half marathon was long enough. But anyway, we were in the hotel and I asked him if I could interview him. I had my recording equipment and I interviewed him about the big ditch in Silver City, New Mexico. My dad was the mayor of Silver City at the time. And the big ditch, there's like a historic flood that happened in our little town. That's the kind of thing, it's not an important story kind of for the world. Silver City is not an influential place on the map necessarily, but the history is something that does teach us a lot about infrastructure and about building properly and planning properly. But it's also just the history of my hometown, and got a chance to talk with my dad about it. And that would not have happened without the Outfall. So I appreciate that.
I have loved being able to talk to the authors who have done above and beyond what we love to do and written these incredible books on these very niche topics, like Cynthia Barnett, Grady Hillhouse, Chelsea Wald, and Christy Spackman with The Taste of Water. You don't normally walk into a bookstore and think, oh, a book about a toilet. That's something I really want to pick up and read. And yet, when you look at their research through their eyes, it really is fascinating. And you see what the world looks like through a completely different lens. And it's really inspiring to talk to these people who have dedicated so much of their lives to understanding how something very small or unassuming affects our daily life.
I don't say this enough, but I would not do this show without them. I may get most of the airtime, but David and Amy keep me going. They make the show better. And listening to them, I realized something else about the Outfall. Yes, we're drawn to people with passion, but we're also drawn to things just out of sight, behind fences, under streets, which brings us to one of our favorite examples of that. And it involves manhole covers. It starts with Bill Davis, an engineer out of Columbia who began photographing manhole covers on his morning runs and ended up building a Facebook community around it.
I'm thinking I'm maybe the other weird guy in the world that's taking pictures of manhole covers. But it turns out there's hundreds of people that do that.
Then there's Russell Mewitz, a graphic designer in Seattle.
I've been living in this neighborhood for 20 years. I walked over this every day and I never noticed it until now. I really love that. I love connecting people with their streets.
And then Calvin Payne from Sheffield, England, who organized walking tours around the city's drainage history.
There's a message from the past there. It quite appealed to me. I think that the most mundane of all items, the drain cover, wastewater, you can't get more every day. And the fact that it's on the ground and people actually walk over them. And I show people all the time. And I get the reaction of, well, I've walked down this street for X number of years and I've never noticed that. That's the most common thing you get. Because who looks at the ground?
Who looks down? That's the question. Turns out, if you start, you can't stop. And speaking of looking down, one episode we keep coming back to is Miss Christina Ray Butler, who spent nearly a decade writing the first ever book about topographic history of Charleston, South Carolina. When someone finds out that I'm part of a podcast and asks for an episode, I usually text them this one episode. Here she is.
When I walk around the city of Charleston, I'm always thinking about what's happening on a subterranean level because we are very close to sea level. And so I'm always thinking about, which drains are below my feet. And occasionally they will cave in because at this point they're 170 years old. And when one fails, it takes the street paving with it. And you can actually see almost like a creek, tide water moving through those drains.
And then she drops this story, the Hessian story.
There's a quote in the book that is a 1780s newspaper advertisement for several suburban residential lots for sale in Harleston Village. It's a nice residential district. And they advertise that they have basically filled these two suburban lots with the upwards of 800 bodies of Waldeckers, Hessians, and British soldiers who had died during the Revolutionary War and were thrown into a mass grave on the edge of town. And land is valuable. So even though that's kind of a makeshift cemetery, they go on to say that they carted in 1,000 cartloads of dung, animal manure, put that on top of the cemetery, capped that with marsh mud, and then sold those as residential building lots. I'm a historian. I find a lot of weird things. And to me, the fact that they almost were proudly and patriotically stating that they had done it was pretty mind-blowing.
And since we're already on talking about Charleston, another episode that fits this hidden world idea perfectly is our visit to South Carolina Ports Authority in Charleston.
I think the first thing that they just notice is they're just in awe of this sheer volume of cargo. I think the other thing that catches them is just the sheer size of everything. The ships, the cranes, the size of the terminals themselves. Wando's about 600 acres. Leatherman Terminal is total right now is about 300 acres. So they're really big facilities. And when you see these ships coming and going, they used to be, when I first came out here years and years ago as a consultant, they were 2,000, 3,000 TEUs. So now they're 2 to 3 times the capacity of some of these things.
That was Walter Lagren, the VP of Engineering and Facilities at the South Carolina Ports Authority. 1 in 10 jobs in South Carolina is tied to that port, and it's been there the whole time. Now, every time I see a container on a ship or a truck, I see it differently. I see it from that perspective of a crane operator. I never really knew. 100 episodes in, I told you at the beginning, I used to think this show was about water infrastructure. I was wrong. What we actually do is simpler than that. We just notice the people, the places most of us walk right past. The ones who care too much about the things nobody else thinks about, the hidden stuff under the street, under your feet, behind fences, just out of sight. We just grab a microphone and shine a light. To everyone who's listened, sent us an idea, shared an episode, or sat behind a microphone and told us what you know, thank you. These are the stories we'd be telling each other anyway. We just got lucky that some of you wanted to listen. And we're not done. I still think our best episode is somewhere out there. One more thing about Ron Rash. In that first conversation, he told me the line he's most proudest of ever writing. He said, "A river is a vein in God's arm," which was awesome. And then he said something else. He said something I didn't fully understand at the time.
And I think as an artist, as a writer, what I love about water is how it conceals so much. There's always a mystery. What's beneath?
Turns out he wasn't just talking about water.
When I think about the Outfall podcast, I guess I first go to the first episode with Ron Rash. I remember driving out of Myrtle Beach and Robert had posted that first episode and I shared it with the students who had gone down to the conference with us. We were at the South Carolina Environmental Conference. Leaving the conference, we listened to it with the students in my car, and I texted it over to the other students, and they listened. And their first reaction was just, "We want more." It was a kind of a short episode for that first one, but it was really good. His feelings on things and his experiences. And I think that's quintessential Outfall. We're talking about water and infrastructure and the way the world works and the way humans have made the world work. But it's very much about the stories of those humans and their individual experiences too.
What I love about the Outfall is we didn't really know what we were doing or making or where it was going. We just knew we had interest in some of the same things. We loved diving in and learning and talking to people and hearing their unique stories. And now we see what it's turned into, which is much more broad than we originally envisioned. We were wondering, do we tell stories that are particular to South Carolina or the Southeast or just water, or maybe water and infrastructure? And then we realized what we loved was finding people that were really passionate about what they did and helping other people understand what they were doing, why they were doing it, and giving a platform for people that do really important work, but maybe hidden work, so that they could tell their story and we could help shine a light